Mr. Willie?
Here.
Mr. Manila?
Here.
Mr. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Davis?
Here.
Mr. Dougherty? Mr. Drum?
Here for life.
Mr. Randolph?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, we would ask everyone to silence phones and electronic devices. If you wish to appeal any recommendation of this board, appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of the commission, we would ask that you fill out a speaker's card so we'll have it for our records. Each side will be given 10 minutes to present with a 5-minute rebuttal. And lastly, if you, after the case is ended, wish to go out and speak about it, we would ask that you would leave the room, or excuse me, leave the building, as if you go back into the back lobby, it does echo into the chamber. I would ask that you stand for an invocation by Commissioner Randolph, followed by the pledge by Commissioner Willie.
Most Holy Father, once again, we come to you as humble as we know how to give you all the praise and all the glory for all the blessings you bestowed on our lives. We thank you for our families, our homes. We thank you for this parish. We thank you for the government that we represent, Heavenly Father. We ask that you bless this commission and allow us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all. And all these blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In our packets are the minutes of the February 2nd, 2016 meeting. If you'd please review those.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dougherty to approve, a second by Commissioner Lauren. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Staff, are there any cases that you wish to be postponed? This is a public hearing. The public is encouraged to participate. Zoning change request cases. Applications for proposed change of zoning district or amendments to the land use ordinance requiring review and recommendation of approval by the Zoning Commission before action by the Parish Council are as follows. 2016-144-ZC, existing zoning, MD1 Medical Residential District. Proposed zoning, MD2 Medical Clinic District. The parcel, 14.132 acres. The petitioner, Paisley McWilliams. The owner, PKMI LLC, Pacey McWilliams. The parcel is located north of Judge Tanner Boulevard, on the south of Hickory Street, and west of Colonial Court, Ward 4, District 5. Staff?
The 2025 future land use plan calls for the area to be developed as planned district with a mix of commercial uses at a variety of density. Considering the purpose of the MD2 medical clinic, which is to provide for the location of small-scale medical uses, and the fact that the site is in close proximity to some existing medical uses, zone MD2, staff would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, Paul Marone this evening on behalf of PKMI LLC and Mr. McWilliams. The 14.132 acre parcel subject to our request is located behind or to the east of Lakeview Regional Medical Center. It is at the end of Lakeview Drive, which is the street that you access off of Judge Tanner Boulevard on the east side of the Regional Medical Center. The property is currently zoned MD1, and under MD1, which is a medical residential district, it allows hospice, nursing home, and assisted living type facilities, but does not allow doctor's office or doctor's clinics. The request tonight is to go to MD2 for that purpose, to be able to permit those type of uses on this property given its proximity to Lakeview Regional Medical Center. The MD2 zone allows some of the same or similar uses as MD1, like assisted living and hospice, but it also allows clinics and doctor's offices. So given the proximity to not only the Lakeview Medical Center, but the other offices and so forth that are satelliting the Lakeview Regional Medical Center, we believe that the MD2 would be the more appropriate zone for this particular tract. The only differences between the MD1 and the MD2 are those uses. And what I mean by that is the other development criteria that we see within each of those two zoning categories are exactly the same. For example, the building height, exactly the same. The setbacks, exactly the same. The lot coverage ratio, exactly the same. Those criteria do not change when we go from MD1 to MD2. It is only the inclusion of a doctor's office or clinic as a permitted use, and I wanted to make that clear. As Ms. Lambert noted, there are other MD2 zones in the proximity. In fact, the parcel directly in front of us is an MD2 zone, and on the east and west side of us we have MD2 zoning as well. So given the proximity to Lakeview Regional Medical Center, which is the driver for that area, or the uses in that area, we would respectfully request your approval to MD2. The staff has recommended approval. We ask that you follow that recommendation and allow us to move through with an MD2 zoning on this parcel. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer those at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in support of this? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? I see none at this time. I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Willie. Is there any further discussion? Commissioner Richard.
Paul, got a couple of questions. How are you accessing this from that end of Lakeview? Because it looks like it terminates at a business or a parking lot of a business. I'm curious how you get into this property.
Good question. If you look at the aerial in your packet, and if you follow Lakeview, where you said it terminates into that business, you see the vacant
Yep.
parcel, right? That's our access way.
And you own that property?
Yes.
Because that's not being asked to be zoned here.
It is MD2.
It's already MD2. Okay,
Yes, sir.
One other question.
Yes.
Well, I agree with you that MD2 only adds a clinical component unless, of course, you're going to be a vet or a lab or something else, which
Correct.
it also allows. I saw there was a limitation of 100 outpatient a day. That's a pretty big parcel for 100 outpatient visits a day in that particular zoning. I don't know what's being planned here, but I'm just trying to think ahead.
Right. Well, I would tell you that the intent is to come back and create multiple parcels out of this for smaller satellite functions, as opposed to one large function that would generate that type of use.
Okay, so the assisted living and nursing homes are off the table?
The assisted living is not necessarily, it is a possibility that we may have one of those uses in there, but it would only be one of those uses. Most likely there will be a application for a subdivision that you would hear as a planning commission that would have a lot layout on this parcel that could accommodate something like that, but that would be the largest parcel or use that we would have on any of these parcels. The rest would be typical clinics and individual doctors' offices.
Okay, I fully understand, and with that, now I know how you're going to get to the property. I support the motion.
Commissioner Lauren.
Yes, Mr. Morone.
Yes, sir.
On the east side of the property where it backs up to, it looks like a whole string of houses along Colonial Drive.
Yes.
What will be the buffer between the rear of those two properties?
That is something that we'll be looking into as we go through the planning process. We are cognizant and sympathetic to that area. We know that we're going to have to deal with that. We don't know what that buffer will be at this point, but we know that there will be a buffer. We also know that the parish requirements with regards to the height of any buildings in these districts require, as you go up, your buffer gets bigger. And so we are mindful of that as we lay this out and establish that buffer in that process.
Are there any further comments or questions for Mr. Maroon? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Randolph, a second by Commissioner Willie to approve. Please vote. Motion carries. 2016-147-ZC, existing zoning, CB1, Community-Based Facilities District, A2 Suburban District, Rural Overlay. Proposed zoning, A2 Suburban District, NC6 Public, Cultural, and Recreational District. The parcel, 3.22 acres. Petitioner, council motion. The owner, Chuck and Candace Hickman. The parcel is located on the south side of Galatas Road, west of C.S. Owens Road, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
This is a zoning change request to rezone the parcel that is currently zoned CB1, the 1.327 acre parcel, back to A2 Suburban, and to rezone a 3.22 acre parcel from A2 to NC6 Public, Cultural, and Recreational District. In 2015, when the request was originally submitted for the CB1, staff did not recommend approval. However, considering that it's mostly moving the request from the front along Galatas to the rear of the property, staff does not have any objection to the request and would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Hi, good evening. My name's Candace Hickman, and I currently reside at 206 Red Fox Run Boulevard in Madisonville. We're here today to speak to you about changing the current zoning of our property from CB1 to A2 and another portion of our land from A2 to NC6, which has been referred back to the commission by the Parish Council. We own a business called Mayhem Baseball Club and have been in business since 2010. We're currently operating out of another rental location in Madisonville and looking to move to a portion of the 10 acres that we own on Galatas Road in Madisonville. In the packet we've provided you, we have a proposed site plan that shows you the current CB1 property along with the proposed NC6 property that we're seeking to rezone. With the proposal, our house will be located between the Parish Road, Galatas, and where we would like to place our business. We have stated several times over the last year that our hopes were to obtain the needed zoning to own our backyard business. We personally would be neighbors to the newly zoned property on both the north and west sides of the property, with only one house adjacent to us on the south that is owned by Mr. and Mrs. Gray. And as part of that packet as well, we have a letter from the Grays showing their support of our project. The other adjacent property owner that owns approximately 5 acres next to us, Mr. and Mrs. Bayham, have shared their opposition throughout the last several months. And in response to their concerns that have been raised, we've worked several months to amend the initial site plan of the CB1 property to move the site location to the back of the property as something they've requested and was brought up during the council meetings. We have also been working to write deed restrictions in response to further requests that they had made, and through their attorney, we presented 2 separate drafts of deed restrictions, each time met with additional requests. The first deed restriction was written in favor of the other adjacent property owner, the Grays, while the second, at their request, we did write in favor of the Bayhams. As recently as the 24th of February, a new request was made through the Bayhams' attorney that we considered unreasonable. Specifically, the request on this piece of property to eliminate all outdoor activity on the proposed NC6 property through that deed restriction. Tonight, we're asking that you review our proposal and find in favor of the NC6 Public, Cultural, and Recreational District designation as recommended by the staff.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this? Please come to the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Tiffany Wall. I live at 74101 Wall Lane in Covington, Louisiana, 70435. I am here as a parent of one of the Mayhem players. As a matter of fact, our Mayhem family is here with us tonight in support of this, as well as this whole entire organization brings so much positive to these children's lives, and I feel like it's extremely important for this to happen, as these children are our future. I don't know how many of you have children or grandchildren, but children with idle time tend to get into trouble. This actually keeps them out of getting in trouble, out of trouble, so that way they can grow to be good, productive citizens as adults. They're learning time management, structure, discipline, motivation, so many things that are coming to with this organization, and I feel like it's just extremely imperative that it happen and continue to grow, as it brings too much to our children. That's positive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
My name is Matt Organ. I live at 71344 Riverside Drive, Covington, Louisiana. I would absolutely speak in favor of them. I've known Chuck and Candace my entire life. They're lifelong residents of St. Tammany Parish. I am as well. My son is on his team, all these people here are here because they are passionate about their children and what Chuck and his wife are able to provide for them. So, being lifelong residents of this area, they're not coming in from nowhere. They know this area, they've lived all over this parish, and really all they're trying to do is better it. And so I would appreciate if y'all would approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor?
Ladies and gentlemen, Ian Hegwood, 7114 Creekwood Drive, Mandeville, Louisiana. And just to piggyback off of what they've said, I think it's pretty obvious that we care deeply about the work that Chuck and Candace do for our children. It makes a huge difference. As a matter of fact, it's I would say it's integral in a part of my son's life and how he's grown as a person. He's been with Chuck for 2 years now. In addition to that, we have to understand from a financial standpoint, if the business continued, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but if the business continued to have to rent, then that's going to put a strain on how much time, how much effort they can put in, because they're going to have to worry about getting money from other sources, or Chuck may have to get a part-time job doing something else. So I guess what I'm getting at is for them to be able to operate this business, which is so good for all our children, at a cost-effective and efficient way, I would ask that you approve this.
Thank you. Anyone else who wishes to speak in support? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?
My name is Eric Bissell. What is my allotted time for the opposition? Is it 5 or 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Okay. I'll be within the 10 minutes.
If you would state your address, sir.
Yes. I have some handouts, too. My name is Eric Bissell. My address is 227 North Columbia Street in Covington. I'm an attorney. I represent the opponents who are the owners of the immediately adjacent property. That's Mr. and Mrs. Thad Baham. The Bahams own a 6-acre tract that is immediately to the east of this property. This zoning application that we oppose is really the fourth bite at the zoning apple that the Hickmans have made. Last spring, the Zoning Commission, you turned down the Hickmans' request for a CB1 zone of 1.3 acres that they owned facing and on Gladys Road. What was represented to you at the time was that they would be an indoor, and I emphasize indoor, batting practice facility. That quickly changed. The Hickmans then appealed to the council. At the council meeting, and this is all of record, the Hickmans stated that if they obtained that zone, that they would agree to restrictive covenants that would limit their particular use of the property within that zone. That is an illegal request to make of the council, but based upon that, clearly based upon the recorded testimony, the council agreed to approve the zoning subject to those restrictions. Those restrictions are unenforceable, as you know. the parish has no authority or right to enforce restrictive covenants among property owners. Now, as a result of that, Mr. and Mrs. Bayham have brought suit, and it's presently pending in the 22nd Judicial District Court, to override that, and that's based upon two considerations, one of which is going to be self-evident to you when you look at the handout. The red arrow indicates the property that is sought to be rezoned. That property is in a veritable sea of yellow color, which is A2 and A3 residential zoning. There is no commercial zoning anywhere near this site at all. When you talk about spot zoning, that is the Webster's Dictionary illustration of what spot zoning is. And further, because the council voted to have this predicated upon the confection of these restrictions, which we never did sign, they were in favor of non-owning neighbors. We have based our appeal to the 22nd Judicial District Court based upon the fact that you cannot do that. You cannot pass a zone subject to restrictions. Either you pass the zone up or down, or you don't. Now, the Hickmans followed that during the existence of our lawsuit with yet a third application, and that was to the Board of Adjustments. It turned out that what they thought they had accomplished at the councilmanic level wasn't sufficient for them, and they sought from the Board of Adjustments additional parking spaces, and they also sought relief from the setback lines for the use of this property. Now, originally, they had applied for a rezoning of a 1.3 acre tract. Now, fortunately, that was turned down by the Board of Adjustments, and so that prohibited them from doing what they wanted to do on the site that they had. At that time, they apparently still intended to have an indoor batting facility that would not be outdoors. Stands to reason it would be much less onerous if the noise is confined to an interior of a building. Now, tonight, the Hickmans are taking a fourth bite at the apple, and they're asking you to expand from what was a 1.3 acre tract now to a 3.3 acre tract. The difference is they have shoved their development to the back of this property. Now, unfortunately, the staff has stated that this should be approved because it is no longer at the front of the property, but shoved all the way to the back, so it's less, they consider that it's less onerous. It is not. The back of the property fronts onto a street. It's not cut through, but it is an open, dedicated street, just as Gladys Road is. And it's very close to C.S. Owens Road. When I say very close, within 300 feet, so it's entirely foreseeable that that road's going to be open, probably at the request of the Hickmans. And you're going to, so you accomplish nothing by shoving this 3.3 facility to the back of the property. Now, I want to point out a fatal flaw in what is happening here tonight. The advertisement is wrong. It's not possibly wrong, it is wrong. It's wrong in two respects. For one thing, they're asking for a rezoning of the 1.3 acre tract back to a residential zone. That 1.3 acre tract is not described in the advertisement, which it should be. It's totally deleted. It's mentioned in the notes from the staff, but it is not mentioned on your agenda. It is not up for hearing and cannot be up for hearing tonight, and I'd refer you to your legal counsel as to that matter. Secondly, they are stating that when you read the advertisement that was published, it leads you to believe that they are asking for a rezone from a C2 commercial district down to an NC Neighborhood Commercial 6 district. Anyone reading that is going to assume that that is a downgrade, so it's less of a commercial activity. That is not what is published in the paper. You have no authority to vote on anything tonight, and again, I'm going to refer you to Ms. Riles. You have no authority to vote on anything tonight that is improperly advertised. It does not give appropriate notice to the general population, and that's what it's required to do. Now, I want to tell you about how this is going to adverse the Hickmans who live next to this property. There is nothing that is going to prohibit outdoor batting activity. This is going to be an outdoor batting range under their requested zone of NC 6. You noted they were specific in not telling you what they intended to do. As is appropriate, you are authorized to consider the most intense, the highest use that could be conceived under NC 6. That would include driving ranges and outdoor batting ranges, which is what we understand they intend to do. Now, place yourself in Mr. Bayham's shoes. He's a resident. He's sitting on his soon-to-be completed house on the 6-acre tract immediately next door to this. There are large lights that are on, probably until 10 o'clock at night. There's nothing to restrict the use of those lights. There's nothing to restrict the use of the people who come and sit in bleachers there to observe their children at this batting practice. There's nothing to restrict the sound whatsoever of the cracking of the bats hitting the baseballs. This is a good facility. We are not opposed to what these people want to do for the area children, but we are opposed to it being done next to a residential area. This is a nightmare if you have to live next door to this. It is inappropriate. There are other areas. The Hickmans knew when they purchased the property that it was zoned as A2 residential, which is what Mr. Bayham's property is still zoned. Again, the staff has recommended approval because it's at the back of the property. I'd ask you to solicit the advice of your counsel as to the publication, and I just want to emphasize that this is inappropriate. It's spot zoning. It's an intensive use that makes living next door to this very unpalatable. If it were an indoor facility, a total indoor facility, we wouldn't be opposed to it. Now, the other thing that you need to consider, which is even worse, is this is not just a request for an NC6 use. An NC6, as you, I'm sure, well know, is titled Public, Cultural, and Recreational Use. The problem is that's the title of NC6. NC6, by its very definition, includes NC5. NC5 includes any use under NC4, and so on down the line until you get to NC1. That means when you consider your rezoning of this property, you need to consider the most intense use that could be found between NC6 and NC1. And if you look, that would include 5,000 square foot restaurants. That would include churches, essentially any type of retail sales, as well as professional offices. That's what needs to be considered. That's what a zone is. It's what you can do in that zone that is permissible. And I thank you for your time, and I'd like to have some advice of counsel on the inappropriateness of the published advertisement before you vote. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Council has reviewed, and council is going to speak to the public.
Reading the advertisement that was placed in the newspaper, there was no reference to the 3.2 acres? 3.2 acres in the advertisement that was placed in the newspaper. It says the changing of the zoning classification, and it says it just references the 3.22 acres of land more or less. It does not reference the other piece that's being changed. So therefore, I think the recommendation that I would have to make at this time is that the matter be postponed in order for it to properly be advertised, and that it would come up at a subsequent date on your agenda.
But in front of the commission, it only references the 3.22 acres. There's no case in front of the commission that has to do with anything but the 3.22 acres. Is that correct?
Well, I would also ask that it be...
Excuse me, sir.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
when you're addressed. So counsel, you believe, or your interpretation is that it's not properly advertised?
No, I think that you need, in order to do exactly what needs to be done, it needs to be advertised referencing both parcels of property that are being affected by this particular zoning case or listed as two separate zoning cases, and proceed that way in order to correct it. The map.
As I
that's-
see, oh, excuse me,
The
sir.
map provides a legal description for the entire parcel of property.
And I see what happened is that the legal description that was provided was for the 3.22 acres, which is in the back.
Correct.
Which does not prohibit, unless if I'm mistaken, for the zoning commission this evening to vote for the A22 and C6, and the CB1 to A2 would have to be re-advertised.
That's correct. That's correct. But I think it'd be advisable, if you're going to do this, that you do it all at one time, and that you postpone it at this time, let it come back when it can all be considered.
Before we postpone it,
Yes.
can we ask some questions? Okay.
We'll address questions. We will do that. All right, council is recommending that we postpone. However, we do have questions of the commission, and
We don't have a motion to postpone. Correct.
no, we
Right,
do
so
not.
we can-
Correct.
that's why I wanted to
We
ask
have, we have
before
no
we
motion to
make one.
postpone. However, before I address the commission, I would ask back to the public as to whether or not the the petitioner wishes to rebut. If so, you have 5 minutes of total time to do so.
I just wanted to reference a few things that he spoke about. Yes, it was passed through a unanimous ordinance in July. And at the time that we were looking at the CB1, we did not say entirely indoor facility, but the way that piece of land was set up, it was only 313 feet wide. So it was not appropriate to have very much outdoor space there. When the discussion was had to move it to the back, we then have almost 900 feet across the back side of our property. So the discussion of the increased cost and all of those things that came with putting in a road to get to the back property all became part of the discussion, and that is why we looked at that 3.22 to have some outdoor space. In addition to that, part of the concern was the physical location of the building to the Bayhams. And if you look at your proposed site plan, we moved it as far as physically possible. I have it in front of me, it's almost 300 feet away from, almost 400 feet away from their property. And so part of that was intentional to be able to address their concerns about the cars coming in, the lights to the parking lot, all of those things were intentional in that. To say that this is the only thing in that location, there's a school less than 1,000 feet away from there, a school that I am very vested in, as I'm an administrator at the school, vested in this community. And so we have kind of put all our eggs in the basket of being part of Madisonville and helping kids there grow. When he talked about CB1 and the parking, we have not even addressed a parking issue because that's a planning issue that comes much later about what's going on with that. The things that he referenced about restaurants and churches, if you would look in the deed restriction that we tried to write in favor of them, it lists a restriction on churches, it lists a restriction on restaurants. All of those things that they had a concern about, we were happy to address, but they did not give us the opportunity because of the unreasonable request for no outdoor activity at all, working with baseball and youth with baseball. So those are the things that I wanted to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Care to rebut?
I think it's unnecessary.
If you would come to the podium.
Yes. I don't think it's at this juncture, I think it's a dead letter. And until it's advertised, anything I say is unnecessary surplusage. I'll save all my future comments for that time. I would like to simply ask, was there any site plan that was filed other than a description of the property? Was anything else showing a location of buildings or anything on the property? Okay, I'll consider this later. But, okay, thank you. But, again, I think it'll just have to take its due course and be properly advertised. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. This time I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Casabon?
Yes, I just wanted to clear up some statements that you had made referring to the council could not rezone something with conditions. I'd just like to state that this council is fully aware and has never rezoned anything granting exceptions. I understood her to say deed restriction on the property, which means that it's their choice. We do not demand it. It's up to when people like your client has problems with something, that's a way of making, getting a solution to the problem without the parish getting into it, which we are aware that we do not enforce it. It's just a matter of trusting that they're going to do what they say they're going to do because their property cannot be used for anything else. I don't think the council at any time, and I know this council has never made conditions for a rezoning. I just wanted to clear that up. But I also had some questions on the, where's my thing? When we talked about it before, the no lighting and things like that, has that changed at all? When we first, I know the first property was in the front. Now this is being moved back closer to the school.
Yes, at no point was there direct conversation about outdoor lighting. We did in that deed restriction, because of the concern, look at what the parish had as part of the uses of outdoor lighting and those kind of things. And we're, obviously, that's something that you have to do as part of being part of the parish.
Okay. But all that has changed since you're going to move it to the back, that you're using, you're wanting
For
to
outdoor,
utilize
yes,
it
yes.
more. Okay, I just wanted to clear that up. But you did use the word deed restriction.
Yes, deed
You
restriction,
would restrict your property on your
right,
deed.
self-imposed.
Okay, that's one of the things I wanted to know.
Any other? Commissioner Willie?
Just a question of our council, because instead of having, we able to hear that case of the 3.22 acres, you recommend that we don't hear because of the advertisement?
Correct. It's apparent in reading the former that one parcel is advertised, but the other parcel that also requires it to be reversed, which is the subject of the litigation, needs to be changed, but that was not advertised.
But is it advertised correctly where we could possibly hear that 3 acres tonight, or you just, in your recommendation?
Well,
we
it makes
should do
the,
it together?
based upon the titles and all, it makes the actual advertisement deficient.
Okay.
You know, so my recommendation, if we're gonna proceed with this, then let's get it right and proceed correctly so that if this matter does result in another court action, we have everything before us in the proper order.
Commissioner Davis?
Question for staff first. Helen, looking at the Google Map image that you provided in our little file here, the rear property, 3.22, according to this image, it looks like it says A4A. Is that incorrect? If you look at the Google image taken for this 3.22 acres, it says A4A. Is that an error?
It would be an error on the map,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, we need to fix that on our map. Anyway, okay. Second question I'd like to ask is for Mr. and Mrs. Hickman. Yeah, so you own the entire property of where CB1 is and where the current A2 is in the back and all the property around it, basically?
Yes, if you look at the second page of the handout I gave you, I put a survey in there of the entire 10-acre parcel that goes on the other side of that bayou as well.
There's no home site on there yet?
No, we've been waiting for this process to be
All right.
able to have a home.
Just out of curiosity, if we take the CB1 property up in the front, that 1.32 acres, and turn it back to A2, I don't have a problem with that. Is there a reason why we have to put this NC6 that far back next to somebody else's private property? Does it have to be at the back of the
Well,
property?
their property runs the whole length of CS Owens, and so they're the only adjacent property owner on that side.
So is it your intent to build this there and let people come down CS Owens and going through this area?
No, if you look at that site plan,
Right.
the road that, again, we moved as far away from their property as we could, would be the access.
Well, just out of curiosity, why
Sure.
not build a home site on the current CB1 that we convert to A2 and then move it up 80 feet up towards the front of the,
If you look at the way that it's situated, that would block access to the property, the 2 or 3 acres that are left on the other side as well.
Okay.
And respectfully, we'd like to be off of Gladys Road with our home and not directly on it, having some setback from frontage.
yeah, I see you have a 50-foot buffer on on one side and a 25-foot buffer in the back?
Yes, in addition to that 25-foot buffer, there is a parish designated 50-foot road that's
Right.
undeveloped. So it's 75 feet off of
Okay.
there.
Because eventually you're going to probably develop that rear property you have on the creek. That's your property as well?
Yeah, that's our property as well, but our intention is for that to be a buffer from people around us. We want to live in the woods.
Okay, well, I mean.
Because there's no access to the other side of that creek
Right.
without a bridge being put in.
So it's your intent that once this is designed, that people come down this 40-foot roadway and park right inside?
You see where the kind of angled parking
Yeah.
looking is?
Yeah.
On that future proposed NC6 property, behind where that building would be.
Okay. All right.
Again, away from Gladys and away from the adjacent property.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thanks.
Commissioner Lauren.
One of the things, well, there's a couple of things that really disturb me. And number one, I know what an imposition it is on all of the people that are here tonight to come out and have to ask you if you want to be involved in this. If we postpone it, you're going to have to do this again. I don't like that, and I want you to know that. But I also want you to know that the things that we do are subject, as evidence in this case, to litigation. And we don't want to do something that winds up being overturned because we didn't follow the law. And we've got a recommendation from our council saying that because it was improperly, inadvertently, accidentally, whatever, advertised incorrectly in the paper, which is a requirement, he's advising us to postpone this for a month so that it can be advertised properly. And for that reason, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to postpone it till next month.
A motion by Commissioner Lauren to postpone until next month, second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Dougherty, if you'd like to speak on postponement.
Yes, and I also have a question for staff that doesn't deal with the postponement. Can I ask that question? Okay, on the postponement, and it will go back to staff, can this be advertised in the next month and be heard at the March meeting, April meeting, excuse me?
No, it will have to be heard at the May meeting, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. So postponement, so it is relative postponement. We would have to postpone then until the
May.
May meeting, correct, to ensure that we have proper
Yeah, I just-
advertisement in the Journal of Record.
Yeah, I just wanted these folks that,
Okay. Good
like
question.
Mr. Lauren was saying, come out tonight to be sure that they don't come out next month. Okay, so this will not be heard again until May.
So, Mr. Lauren, you would amend the motion till May? Mr. Willie, you would second that? Okay. Is there any other questions regarding postponement? We do have a motion by then Commissioner Lauren to postpone until the May meeting, and a second by Commissioner Willie. Please vote. The motion to postpone is approved. And then that will be advertised so that it can be heard again in May, correct? Thank you. 2016-148-ZC. We'll give you a moment to exit the building. And we appreciate everyone being here for this. Yes. All right, we will proceed. 2016-148-ZC, existing zoning, HC2, Highway Commercial District, proposed zoning, I-1 Industrial District, the parcel, 30,000 square feet. The petitioner, Covington Kitchen and Bath, ZIUU, the owner, Clay Pareto, parcel located on the southwest corner of Louisiana Highway 59 and Cashrill Drive, being 21530 Cashrill Drive, Mandeville, Ward 3, District 5. Staff?
Staff doesn't have any objection to the request, considering that the Highway 59 corridor is developed with a mix of retail uses, office, warehouse, and outdoor storage yard, and would like to recommend approval.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
Again, my name is Matt Organ. Do I have to give my address again?
Yes.
71344 Riverside Drive, Covington, Louisiana. I own Organ Properties. I'm here to represent Covington Kitchen and Bath. I also represent the Prieto family. And as staff has recommended, Highway 59 is certainly a mix of commercial and industrial properties fronting the highway. This property is surrounded by commercial uses. To the rear, I spoke with the owners in the back. They were in favor of it. That's Mr. Larry Lloyd. I spoke with the Beta Barbecue. They were in favor of it just because they want activity and it brings customers to the area and it sells barbecue. So they were in favor of it. The reason for the request is because zoning, HC2 zoning or any C zoning does not allow for yard, any sort of yard. And so it's Covington Kitchen and Bath. So in kitchen, they have slabs of granite that will be stored outside. We cannot do that in HC2 zoning. So it would be a retail sales storefront. People will come, see the cabinets, pick out the granite. Then that's why they're requesting the zoning change. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium, state your name and address, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Charles Clark, a.k.a. Charlie. I live at 21458 Cashrill Drive. I've been a resident of Cashrill for 27 years. The property that we're speaking of tonight, the actual neighborhood has already compromised in allowing these storefronts to face Cashrill instead of Highway 59. Mr. Craig Patterson back in about 1996, came to the neighborhood because it actually sits where it could face Highway 59. But because you could only get one business, because it's so narrow, to face Highway 59, he came to the subdivision, excuse me, and asked if he could set several small retail businesses that would only park 4 or 5 vehicles each on our street. And this street is the gateway to our subdivision and our neighborhood. So we actually compromised, saying that yes, it would not be a big impact, and just having small retail outlets with a small number of employees and no actual trucks and service vehicles or anything coming in, we compromised and allowed it to happen. Well, we're here tonight with no good deed goes unpunished. And if we talk about the actual zoning of it, there are many, many other industrial sites. In fact, there's one across the street on the opposite side, on the east side, which is for lease at this particular time. We all know that we have created just 1 mile or 1/2 mile south of this location, an industrial park that has many places for sale and for lease. We, and if you know the times that I've been here, we actually work with the old Highway 59 junkyard. And I can tell you that you've had to live here a long time when Highway 59 was gravel. That place pre-existed all of us. So we work with them to allow them, and through you, to actually start a phase-in program. The front of that is industrial, but understand it does not set at the head of the roads, neither Mere, neither Casrill, neither Parker. It's in the middle of the block. It has its own turn-in routes, its own trucks can get in, and then we feathered that zoning off to where it touches the residential A2, by the way, low-density areas in the back, to neighborhood commercial. It fits. What's being proposed tonight, number one, is a random selection of a site to simply put something it does not fit in our neighborhood. It doesn't fit as yard service to have materials lying as a gateway to our community. It's a public school bus route where we have school buses coming down the road, and in the blend of things, I can tell you that I have an 85-year-old mother who's the closest resident to this. Noise. And as I heard earlier, we have to consider the highest thing that could be in fact put on this if we rezone it to industrial, which includes welding shops and everything else that go along with that. Now let me say this, that all the places that our community has worked with, and we've worked with them all, everything that touches the residential A2 area, our neighborhood has worked in concert with those people to have it done. This is the undoing of what we have already worked with the owners. As these properties sell, as in this case, they want a higher zoning. Well, everybody has made decisions based upon those commitments that our neighborhood and the business owners, or at least at the time, have made. And now the rules want to be changed. It's about safety in our community, bringing big trucks down these narrow roads that were never built to have big trucks on. If they put the oblique fence facing Casrill, as it said in their petition, then they have no entrance into the place. There's no other place that a truck could actually back in to this small place. So to say that they're going to have a yard, that they're going to put fencing, they're going to have to create a gigantic gate, and we all know what gates is, that stay open all the time for truck access, which everybody who comes in and out of the road. The one other thing I can tell you is it sits directly on the corner of 59 and Casrill. I don't need to tell you about the traffic in the suicide lane on Highway 59 when you're trying to turn off of it and onto it. If you have trucks and you have service vehicles in this area, it literally blocks our road. You can't come on, you can't come off of it. So with those things in mind, again, we have worked with all the business owners in the area. We've settled to a point where against my fence is where he talked about Larry Lloyd, 28 foot tall. There is a commercial building with a 10-foot setback, by the way. I tolerated that. Commercial businesses belong on the highway. We've always supported that. Our neighborhood knew at least I did, and most of the people on our road, that when we moved between two of the main arteries that exist in this parish, that we were going to have some kind of encroachments. There were lines of demarcation being drawn back when we had the police juries here. And we have worked hard to make that and establish that as fact. So I beg of you not to start undoing what we have already accomplished and to let things stay where they are, understanding that there's all kinds of vacant industrial property. In fact, on the east side of Highway 59, where we do not even have a word. They will tell you that there is an industrial site 200 yards north on the east side. On the east side is not pulling into our neighborhood. On the east side, you have to have your own driveway, and you pull off on the right-hand side of 59 and not into Casrill. So we don't mind the industrialization of the east side between the Trace and 59. It's the entrances of those three arteries that contain the neighborhoods and the subdivisions. And thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? Please come to the podium. We have about 2 minutes remaining.
My name's Nathalie Oman, and I live on Casrill Drive. I have a grandchildren that plays and really don't need, the street's not big enough for large trucks to go through, and the corner of Casrill and 59 turning into our street is a dangerous turn to begin with. A lot of accidents happen with just automobiles, let alone big trucks. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you would please fill out a speaker's card, you can
Sure.
take one over there. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition? If not, I would ask if you care to rebut. You have 5 minutes.
This specific site does not touch the A2 zoning that he's referring to, and he mentioned Larry Lloyd's buildings behind it. It's surrounded by commercial, and yes, there's I-1 zoning across the street. There's also I-1 zoning a little bit further north. I think you can see it on the zoning aerials. That's on the west side of 59, and I believe it backs up to possibly residential. It looks like the green zoning in your packet is residential. So there's already I-1 zoning there. HC2 zoning, if I could fit it, and I'm just thinking through this in a rebuttal. I mean, I could put a fast food restaurant on that could have 18-wheelers backing up buns to it. So certainly in HC2 zoning, with the current zoning that's there, you could have large trucks. I-1 zoning, the petitioner does not have large trucks delivering. They have smaller sized work trucks. In fact, they're currently in a shopping center off Highway 190. There's no large trucks that go to that shopping center for them. Can I say that there will never be, whether this is HC2 zoning or I-1 zoning, you really can't change the fact that more than a sedan might go there. So, I know that their concern is the larger trucks, but whether it's C2 or whether it's, HC2 or whether it's I-1 or whether it's the two very large warehouses behind this property, they could have the large trucks there. So, I don't think that Covington Kitchen and Bath is going to bring an excessive amount of large trucks on a highway that sees approximately 15,000 cars a day. It's not 190. It's not 60,000 cars a day. So I don't think that one cabinet and countertop store is going to drastically impact the traffic at that location. With respect to access and the gates, yes, there will be a gate. Yes, they will turn into the property. I'm sure during the day the gates may be open so that people can go in and out of the gate. The idea is to pull customers onto the property, let them walk in to go pick the slab, they load the slab up, and it's out of there. So the good thing about the property is it has 2 curb cuts, which you can have your customers pull up into the little parking lot in the front, and any sort of trucks that would be any larger than, if it was a larger truck, it would be able to be isolated over by the yard. So it's a 30,000 square foot property. It's a 4,000 square foot building, and it's not, the intent is not to create high traffic at that area. And the petitioner does not use large trucks. So I appreciate your time. Again, 59, it's evident in the zoning that's there. There's I-1 across the street. There's I-1 on the west side. And if we could have a yard in C2, HC2, we would stick with the current zoning. That's the primary reason as to why we're here. Not to create an industrial environment. It really could be it could fit, but the storage of the slabs is the problem, which it would be opaque as per the, nobody would see it, and if, except for when they pass by a small gate and look in, and I don't know, I like the way granite looks. It looks good. It's usually, most people want it in their house. You know, they're not like we're trying to store generators or anything like that. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone, would you care to rebut, sir?
I actually have a picture of it that you can see. What you just heard was he's got a 4,000 square foot building that he wants to have 26,000 square foot of outdoor storage in with an open gate. So that's one of the main things, the ambiance of actually entering our subdivision. I also have some pictures of some of the homes. And he's right. There is industrial property across the street for lease. There is industrial property right to the north. I just told you about the old Highway 59 junkyard that has been revitalized and is up for lease or for sale or build to suit. So those places already exist to actually have that business. You know, and I would say that if this business offered some benefit to the community, I don't think that you would hear us up here complaining. It just doesn't fit. The industrial site, just as we all know, you have to plan for the worst that can happen to you. Mr. Patterson told me originally this was going to be little tiny retail stores, and that's what he built. But Mr. Patterson doesn't own it anymore. And then when Prieta bought it, it was going to be the little retail stores. But here we are, it's getting sold again, and eventually somebody, if it's rezoned, will want to take it to its highest level. So it's just a domino effect, and you know, I wish that we could work out some deal where he could have it. But understand this, there's also a vacant 1 acre lot or a little bigger than 1 acre lot. I believe that he could tell you that the individual that he's representing owns right next to it. So, and it's on the highway. If that were what was being considered here to the front of that highway, we could probably talk, but not the continued encroachment back into the A2 subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you. This time I close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Willie.
Yeah, I just want to mention a little history, and it was years ago, even before the comprehensive rezoning, there was cases where it came before the jury at the time, I think, where the neighborhood did compromise to HC2 on both sides of Cash Rail, which is a residential highway, a residential narrow road, actually. And that's why you see a parallel line running parallel line with Highway 59 of HC2 designation on both sides of Cash Rail. It was to protect the neighborhood to the west of that. So, you know, I think Charlie was right when saying it was compromised before about allowing HC2 neighborhoods. It was, I think, it was A1 maybe along the highway, or maybe some slight commercial up front. But they went ahead and went all the way to HC2 to allow for some commercial along 59 in toward their neighborhood. And that's what I want to give you a little reflection on the history.
Thank you. Commissioner Matthews.
Yeah, I don't remember your name, sir. Would you come up?
Matt Organ.
Torgan?
Matt Organ, O-R-G-A-N.
Okay, Matt, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
You said that you all would be happy to have HC2, except for the fact that you can't have an outdoor storage yard.
That's right.
Is that correct?
If staff,
Well,
I rely.
HC2, number 11 in the permitted uses, talks about an outdoor storage yard. It also, number 15 in the permitted usage, talks about an outdoor retail sales and storage yard. So HC2 does provide for outdoor storage yards that you're requesting.
Mr. Matthews?
Mm-hmm.
If you read the definition of the outdoor retail sale or storage yard,
I have.
it would have to be in conjunction with a home improvement center, a hardware store, or a department store.
Or the like.
Excuse me?
Yeah, used for, facility for the sale of home, lawn, garden supplies, brick, lumber, and other similar building materials used in conjunction with the home improvement center, hardware store, or department store. That's for example. They're going to have a store there.
Yes, but
Are they not? So I think that fits into the outdoor storage yard.
Well, I'm going to defer to legal counsel. I've already discussed this with Mr. Fontenot.
Well, I believe Mr. Fontenot may well be wrong, because I believe this would qualify as an outdoor retail sale and storage yard. They're going to have retail sales there. They're going to have other things than granite, bathroom supplies. So, yeah, I think it does. And if it doesn't, there is also outdoor storage yards. Number 10, or number 11.
So the question raised
Not
by...
greater than 50% of the land area. HC2A has a similar.
Associated with a mini storage.
HC3 also allows for outdoor retail sales and storage yards. I think either of the HCs, 2A or 3, would qualify for what this man is trying to do. And I don't think it needs to be an industrial. I think that kicking it way up to a intensive use that we really don't need in this area. And I would move to deny.
We have a motion by Commissioner Matthews to deny, second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Davis.
On the, also noted the highway commercial too. I too believe that in highway commercial too, you can do what you want to do. Unfortunately, I believe you said something about a 20,000 square foot outside area?
The yard, right, that might be the.
That won't happen.
What size?
It's going to have to be 15,000 square foot, which is going to be half of the 30,000 square foot total property size. It'd have to be 15,000 square foot. If highway commercial 2 is appropriate, according to staff. They're going to have to look this up, but I just, that's something that you may want to think about, because it looks like it's going to be denied for I-1, just to let you know.
Commissioner Lauren.
Question for our legal counsel. Is Commissioner Matthews' point proper? Is it a permissible usage?
It could possibly be. When it comes to the interpretation of zoning matters, as far as what is appropriate and what is not appropriate in a particular zone, Mr. Fontenot, based upon the charter, is the interpreter of what is permissible and what is not permissible. Certainly our zoning code is drafted to where we try to be all-inclusive, but sometimes things do come up that are not specifically identified in this. I think that Mr. Matthews has a very good point, and so does Mr. Davis. It may have to be limited in the quantity, the number of square feet of outside storage. If Mr. Fontenot says, yeah, it would be an appropriate zone, but there's limitations on it based upon our zoning code. So this is a matter that I'll confer with Sydney on if the matter is denied, and then if they want to come back and potentially petition for a different zone, they can certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Dougherty.
Since there seems to be some question about the appropriate zoning, I just, in my mind, thinking that it might be appropriate to postpone this one as well and let legal counsel get with Mr. Fontenot and his staff and come back either with the I-1 or leave it at the HC2. You could have storage in HC2, is that right, Bill?
Yeah, you can have storage in HC2.
Okay.
but it limits it to 50%.
And so I think, rather than start an advertising process all over again, I think it may be appropriate to postpone this until next month, the April meeting, and give legal counsel and staff and the petitioner an opportunity to get together and come up with either no, we're not going to back down, we want the I-1, or yes, we can go with the HC2.
Counselor, do you have any comment?
That would certainly be appropriate. A postponement would be very appropriate. The property has been advertised correctly. The legal description is there. And when it comes back to y'all next month, if there is another zone that it may fit into less the industrial zone, the petitioner can amend orally at that time to go down to another particular zone that may be more fitting for this particular site.
Commissioner Matthews?
If we deny this, there would be no need for re-advertisement or anything. The petitioner would be allowed to appeal it to the council if he so desires. But I think this is an inappropriate request, and if the council wants to allow it, then I think it's up to the council to allow it. But I think this is totally an inappropriate request.
Commissioner Dougherty, did you make a motion to postpone, or was that just a suggestion?
Yes, I would make a motion to postpone this to the April meeting to allow staff and legal to get together along with the petitioner and maybe come back with
Clarify
something
whether or not petitioner's current request or business plan would fit into HC2. Okay. We have a motion to postpone, but we do not have a second. Second? Commissioner Richardson, yes, and I'll explain that in a second. Second by Commissioner Richardson. A motion to postpone takes precedence over another motion. So in answer to the question that we would have a motion to deny, the motion to postpone does take precedence. Is there any discussion regarding the motion to postpone? If not, I would ask you to vote on a motion to postpone. Motion to postpone carries.
Thank you.
And that is until next month. Thank you. And staff, if you would please have Mr. Fontenot and council see if that current commercial business would fit in that. 2016-149-ZC, existing zoning A5, two-family residential district. Proposed zoning A5, two-family residential district, and a planned unit development overlay. The parcel, 23.37 acres. The petitioner, GCG LLC, Greg Intravia. The owner, GCG LLC, Greg Intravia. The parcel is located on the southwest intersection of Interstate 12 and Louisiana Highway 1085, across from Paraloo Road, Ward 1, District 1. Staff?
The site is proposed to be developed with 107 single-family residential unit. The maximum lot size will be 3,400 square feet, and the residential unit will not exceed 1,800 square feet. The site is proposed to be accessed through a boulevard-type entrance from Highway 1085. A revised plan was submitted. We had asked that a walking path be provided around the detention pond, and the petitioner and the owner agreed to do so, as you can see on the revised plan, and it's connecting through the active area. And we also requested that no-cut buffers be provided along Interstate 12 and Highway 1085 to provide a buffer for the adjacent homes. And at this time, staff would like to recommend approval of the requested plan unit development.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Manella. Paul Marone on behalf of the petitioner and Mr. Intravia this evening. This 23.37 acre tract is located at the intersection of I-12 and Highway 1085. You may recall that this is the property that you heard back in April of 2015. The request at that time was to rezone the property, which was largely zoned HC1 to the residential A5 zoning. The commission approved that request by an 8-to-1 vote. On appeal, we worked with the Councilman Dean for the area, as well as some of the residents. And at that time, we committed to come back and to request a PUD for this particular tract. And we agreed with Mr. Dean and with the residents that our PUD would contain 3 particular criterion. The first is that even though the property was zoned A5 and allows for duplexes, that we would propose a PUD with single-family residential garden homes as opposed to common wall duplexes. We also committed to proposing only 1 curb cut onto Highway 1085, and finally, to have a 50-foot no-cut buffer along the Highway 1085 frontage. The request before you this evening is a fulfillment of that obligation that we made back in April of last year, and if you will review the plan, you will see each of those criteria are met in the plan that you have before you. The most significant item of this plan is the single-family residential as opposed to the duplexes. That was a request of the residents. It was something that my client agreed to, and is something that we're prepared to follow through with. As for the density, the max density that A5 would allow on this site is 186 units. Using the net calculation in the UDC, we could still have 140 units. We're only proposing 107. Our green space is at 38%, which is in excess of the requirement of 25%. And we do have buffers along Highway 1085 as well as along I-12 that are no cut, and buffers, though, that surround the entire track. With regards to the amenities, you'll see that we have a half-court basketball court, we have an athletic field, we have playground equipment, we have picnic tables, and as Ms. Lambert noted, we have added the walking path that connects the recreational area and extends around the proposed detention pond. Finally, as with any planned unit development, we do have to have central utilities. It's worth noting that we have committed to tie into the parish's existing facilities on the north side of the interstate. That is significant in that the cost to bore I-12 is significant. It has been the goal of the parish to make that connection so that their systems on the south could be joined with their systems on the north, and we are going to facilitate that as part of this project. And we're working closely with Mr. Greg Gordon, the director of that department, in making that connection. So in conclusion, what you have before you is a fulfillment of the obligation we made to the residents back in 2015. We believe that the single-family garden homes rather than the attached wall duplexes would be better. We're committed to seeing that through. We believe it's a better fit for the area. And we would ask that you follow staff's recommendation and approve our request for this PUD overlay.
Thank you, Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Matthews.
Paul, your client is going to make the connection from the north side to the south side of I-12 and large enough for the parish to tie into that in the future?
Yes, we are the primary facilities that, well, it's complicated, but yes, there is a very large, there is a sub-regional facility, wastewater treatment facility, as well as a very large well, the well at the diversified site. You see the tower from the interstate. We are going to bore from the south side to the north to connect to the water and the sewer. Now, in our discussions with Mr. Gordon, we have a certain diameter pipe that we need to make that bore. We are going to upsize that through working with him. The parish is going to help with the upsizing cost. so that when we make that installation and make that bore, it will serve us, but the pipe size will be large enough for the parish's additional uses.
That's impressive. I move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Matthews to approve, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, Paul, I see the wetlands designated on the map. There's not going to be a problem, is there, in case you get a massive flood, that the people that live on Spotted Fawn Drive aren't going to be able to get out the subdivision?
No, all of this property is flood zone C. It is a largely flat piece of property, which is what gives rise to those. It is not a depressed area. And so as you see, we are planning to accommodate a very large retention area there, so we don't envision that having any problems.
Okay. And of course, the reason for the PUD, one thing about a PUD that I don't see in this is the diversity of lot size.
That's correct. That's correct. We do not. The driving factor in going to the PUD was to be able to accommodate all three of the criteria that were asked to get to the single-family residential and to create the buffers and so forth. So it was a compromise that we worked out with Mr. Dean and the residents.
And the green space and all
And
that
the green, that's
space.
correct.
Okay. Did somebody second the motion?
Yes.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Commissioner Dougherty.
Well, just on the areas that's designated as wetlands, and staff, help me here, is this a no-fill area?
No, this, not to interrupt, but this is, the no-fill areas are either flood hazard areas or critical sensitive drainage areas established by the Parish Engineering Department. Neither of those would apply to this particular parcel or those wetlands. So there's not a parish prohibition against placing fill here. There is a Corps prohibition against placing fill there, so we'll have to have that permit in place before we actually break ground.
Okay, and if you have a problem with the Corps, well, let's wait till we get to that.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions of the commission? If not, we have a motion by Commissioner Matthews to approve, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Please vote. Motion carries. Do we have any old business to come before the commission? Commissioner Matthews, you had requested new business?
Yeah, got kind of a statement to make. I've been on this commission for 8 years. I was previously on the Board of Adjustments for 4 years, so I've been doing land use for the parish for 12 years. The main reason I ever wanted to become a commissioner was to be involved in the comprehensive rezoning. And I spent many, many hours doing that, and we're very proud of what we were able to do. In addition to that, many of the changes that we've affected over the past 8 years, I've been instrumental in the operations of this board. From simple things like the seating, putting our president in the middle instead of on the end, makes it a lot nicer for the people coming in to speak. They can find out who in the hell they're talking to. Also, our rules of operation, I believe I was the driving force behind that. As of now, I'm involved in about 4 other organizations. My family tells me they really want to see more of me. I have a brand new grandchild that, matter of fact, I had to leave at my house with my wife to come here tonight. I also just recently voted for term limits for the council, which I think is an excellent thing that we are probably going to do. With that, at the close of the meeting tonight, I'm submitting my resignation.
On behalf of the commission, Mr. Matthews, you've served at the highest standard. Your years of experience and your profession has served the public interests and this commission very well, and we were very honored to have you on the commission.
It's been my pleasure and my privilege.
Would any other commissioner like a point of personal privilege? Commissioner Dougherty.
I'd just like to echo your comment. I've enjoyed working with Bill over the years I've been on the commission and served as chairman. He was always willing to step up and help get something done, get some verbiage straight in some of our rules and ordinances so that we weren't in a gray area. It was a black and white area. And Bill, it's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Davis.
Yes, Bill's investigative analysis on all these matters has been excellent. As most of you know, he has a tendency to go a little overboard, but let me tell you, in this position, you need to do that. You need to make sure things are right and things are going to flow correctly. So with that, I'll miss him as a commissioner, but I'm so glad I have him as a friend.
Commissioner Randolph.
I'm going to leave you with the book.
Actually, being one of the shortest termers, I found that this commission has been very, very educational for me. The most knowledgeable commissioner, he was leaving now, has been very, very forceful and very, very good as a mentor to me. And it's been very interesting. It's been very inviting. And I want you to know that I believe we were starting to gain a relationship. So you're going to be missed. Thank you.
Well, we all wish Commissioner Matthews the very best, and again, thank him for his public service. And wish him all the best. And enjoy that grandbaby. Would you care to make the final meeting adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
So you and Marty, y'all go fishing or what? Come on.